Greetings everyone, I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion, as you can tell from the title up there, continuing my trek through all of the Undertaker's matches at Wrestlemania, and we are in the home stretch. This is the penultimate match he had at Mania. This, of course, is from Wrestlemania 34, which took place on April 8th, 2018 in New Orleans, Louisiana, at the Superdome in front of over 60,000 people. This is his glorified squash match against the man who is retiring the year that I'm recording this, and that, of course, is Taker versus John Cena. Now, I know this is a match of Mania that for years a lot of my fellow wrestling fans wanted to see at Mania. Because, one, the last time these two had wrestled was when Cena was still a rookie, at least WWE-wise, and Undertaker was in the American Badass character. A lot of miles those two racked up in between that time in this. Now, there were a lot of people like, yeah, we don't want to see Cena wrestle Taker at Mania just because they were like, oh no, don't tell me they're going to have Cena take the streak. Now, that would have been interesting, especially if Cena was going in as champion, because then you have either Cena walks out without the title, or he walks out as the one who retired The Undertaker. And I would be lying if I would just sit here and say that wouldn't have been interesting. But of course, now that it's post-streak, it's one of those things where there wouldn't have been as much on the line, but it still would have been for bragging rights, especially all the years in between when these last two wrestlers fought. But instead, we, like I said, get a squash match. Now, the actual story background for this is that Cena was determined to wrestle at this Mania. Now, he was a free agent in storyline, and for those of you who don't know what that means that he was not contracted to either of the brands. So he decided to enter himself in the Royal Rumble to enter this in a World Championship match. He made it to the final three, and then he was eliminated. Then he qualified for Raw's Elimination Chamber match, hoping to get a shot at the Universal title match. And, of course, because of that, he was also among the 5 challengers in the WWE Championship match at Fastlane, which was a SmackDown event. But he came up short both times. Now, on Raw, Cena's like, maybe I should attend it as a fan, but then he decided, you know what, if I can't go there as a world champion, or to try to get it, maybe, you know what, I'm going to challenge The Undertaker. And then Cena bring up, yeah, it's not the executives who are preventing the match, but Taker himself. Which, given that the previous Mania, Taker had gone out on his back, taken off his stuff, and then walked out into the sunset, you can understand from why, in a storybook content, he would not want to come out of it. It's like the gunslinger going off into the sunset and riding his last ride. No pun intended. Now, on the final Raw before Mania, Cena declared that he would not take a spot, but he was still mad about not having the match and mad at Undertaker for not even saying anything. And, of course, we get to the match itself, where we see Cena all throughout the event, just at different places. I didn't go back and watch all that, I'll look there. And, of course, I worked the night this pay-per-view happened, but I would remember going in on all my breaks and watching it on my phone. And if I remember right, I was on my lunch when this match actually happened, so I did get to sit and watch all of it. Now, I'm looking forward to the little notes here. Now, Cena was in the crowd, but then a ref told him that Undertaker was at the arena. Now, Cena made his entrance, but instead of Taker, it was Elias. And, of course, Cena attacks Elias. And after leaving, the lights go off again. And Undertaker's coat and hat that he left in the ring are now back in the ring. And then they're struck by lightning. And out comes Undertaker in his entrance. And the match begins. Now, the way Taker comes out, it could be one of those things, if you look at it like a gunslinger, it's a gunslinger being like, yeah, I retired, but if you really want to go at it, I don't mind showing you. I go a little draw there, but now from the beginning, Taker is dominating Cena. You know, he does. It's essentially, from an in-ring standpoint, a best of for both wrestlers, more so Taker. We get old school, we get the flying clothesline. Cena counters a choke slam and attempts to do his spit out powerbomb. Then, of course, Cena goes for his 5-knuckle shuffle. Taker sits up and then he tombstones him after a choke slam and he defeats him. Which is interesting because this is one of the first times in a long while all it took was one tombstone to beat somebody, which, considering it's also Cena, Also makes it a little bit more big. But this is also when Cena was starting that losing streak that he continued on until his recent run. So I guess it would make sense, especially since he was starting to do more movies here, that he's not is in the best in-ring shape. So one tombstone's enough to get him. And of course, this takes Undertaker's WrestleMania record at 24-2. There's not really a whole lot to talk about in ring. I mean, I just basically covered all of it. Like, let me go to like how long the match is real quick. Like, the match is not even 3 minutes. Not a whole lot of story you can tell in 3 minutes, but for a best of for Taker, it works. Now, I know Taker wanted this to be an actual match, but it was Vince. They were like, no, you're just going to go out there. And he actually trained for a full match. If you watched that Taker documentary they did back in 2020, where they showed a lot of behind-the-scenes footage, one of the things they show is him training in a ring and him talking about how he hates that he wasn't in as good a shape for his match with Reigns, so he wanted to make sure he was in that for Cena. So he basically overtrained for the match we got, but for those almost 3 minutes he's in there, Taker looks damn good. Now, if the match had gone at least 10 minutes, it probably would have still been good. Might have started to get a little bit winded there, maybe, but Taker's done 30-minute plus matches, so he should have been fine with that. But for what it is, the match is all right. And of course, like I think I mentioned last time, whereas that was Taker's last full-length WrestleMania match, this was also just his full normal match in general in front of a live audience, because it would be 2 years before we saw Taker at Mania again in a match, and of course that was during COVID, so we got his cinematic match. And for the last one in front of a live audience, this is an okay one to go out on, especially since he's beating the biggest person of the era that we were exiting at this point. And of course the next one, if you're going to have your last official match, even if it's a cinematic match, be against anybody who was on the roster at that time, especially if it's someone you hadn't worked with yet. Taker's last Mania match being against a phenomenal one, that's a good one to go out on. And of course that will be next time. Till then, everybody.